everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the Daily Futures Market Outlook for tomorrow. That's going to be the 8th, 6/8/2017, and this is where we formulate an attack plan for tomorrow's trading with the information that the market is giving us today. Now, relatively slow, kind of grindy day again. I know, rinse and repeat, right? Surprise, surprise, it was a little bit slow today, but, you know, maybe take a look at the crude oil chart there in the bottom left. At least some markets moved, right? Now, if you haven't seen it yet, make sure to watch the market psychology video from today that was posted on our YouTube channel and in the blog section at the bottom. And we go over that move on crude oil and just the amount of just massive interest that came through with that move from the psychological aspect. Now, as always, before we jump on into the charts, make sure to swing on over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down, and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. That's going to let you sign your email up so that you'll get email notifications whenever we send these emails out with the videos, along with all kinds of other stuff, like different stocks we're keeping an eye on, different cryptocurrencies, especially with Bitcoin continuing to go bonkers. Pretty much everything, we're going to talk about it in the newsletter at some point. Now, don't forget, at the bottom of the page, every single day, we post two different types of things. We have the market psychology video or a trade of the day type video. And again, today was the one going over that big crude oil drop on the inventory, so a good watch. I may be a little bit biased there, but I think it's a good watch to go through and just kind of see what that was all about. And then, of course, every single morning we post the live trader morning prep levels, and those are the major levels of support and resistance every day to keep your eyes on for that day of trading. Now, if you haven't done so already, make sure to swing on over and click on the live trader room subscription and trial info, and that's going to let you sign up for a one-day trial in the room so you can sit down with us, see what we're all about. Even if the markets are slow, we still have plenty of stuff to go over and a lot of really interesting topics that tend to come up during the room, especially when it's slow, because that's when people start asking a bunch of fun questions. So the live trading subscription and trial info is where you sign up for that one-day trial. If you really enjoy it, you can always sign up for a weekly or monthly subscription. And of course, if you join as a full-fledged VIP member, you get the live trade room as part of the package. Now, taking a look at the euro. The euro, we started with a small little gap higher here and ground our way down for most of the day. Caught a quick little snap higher to monthly resistance, dumped down to monthly support, back up to monthly resistance, and then it dropped the hammer and just pounded through the lows. But then 7 o'clock came, and that down move completely reversed back up to a new high again, and right back through that area of monthly resistance in this case, and smack into the next area of monthly resistance. So these two levels, the monthly resistance and support, big areas that we seem to be respecting quite well. Now, the overall movement, for the most part, just a big range with a very slight downward bias, opening up here and closing right here, and that's going to give us a daily candle with a little bit of wick on the top, a bare body close, and a huge wick on the lows, and that's going to give us a little bit of weakness, a sign that the buyers are attempting to come in off of the bottom and push the market back up. If we zoom out and we take a look at the bigger picture, we can see that this was nothing more than just a dip back down into earlier congestion and a pop right back up once again, so the buyers are obviously interested in pullbacks, and that tells us that the buyers are still interested. Even if they are looking for some better prices, every time it gets down to those prices, they buy right back in. Now, the overall area of resistance that we need to break through is 12,770. Once we can break through that, we should be geared up to go through the highs and continue, but that is the last line of defense, aside from monthly resistance at 2820, that is in the way for the buyers. From the buy side, if they give us a pullback, and we may have a couple different options here, but if we get a pullback, obviously monthly support again. We also have rising wedge support. We have horizontal support from the daily and 60-minute chart down here, and that's going to be at 12,365 to 269, 270 if you round up. So this area is going to be a big area of interest. And notice one thing as well here, we have a potential kill zone depending on how long this takes, right? We have an area of potential falling resistance. We have an area of potential horizontal support. If we can get everything to kind of culminate all in the same place here, you would have monthly support, rising channel support, horizontal support, and, you know, we might even be able to break out of that, and that would give you an even better look for an upside move. So a potential for a big cluster of support here for the buyers. Really, again, the last line of defense that the sellers have is 12,770, and once we can get rid of that, we should be geared up to go up to that big 3,000 level again. On gold, for the most part, just kind of grinding its way back down. We had a big gap up, and then it just kind of continued to drive its way lower. Very similar to the way that the euro formed, with that big dip down, big slam higher, but this one continued back to the downside for a very large breakdown. Now that breakdown ran straight into 60-minute support at 85.8, and we are looking at that level if the market comes back as a big area of interest. Now I say if the market comes back because one big thing that stands out here is that prior low at 86.7. They tried to break through the bottom of the channel, they failed, gave it one more shot, and then after that it was sort of like the last ditch effort from the sellers, that final push, and it came right back up again. And a lot of times when that type of scenario happens, that prior swing just before that last push becomes a big area of support and resistance, and that's going to be at 86.7 down to 85.8, maybe a little bit lower to the overall low at 85, but either way, we have a potential for a continuation move to the upside. Now, I know it seems kind of strange because, well, zooming out, today was nothing but bearish. The overall trend, though, is still neutral to bull, and we are continuing to just keep going up. We just don't stop. We get some nice pullbacks inside there, and that appears to be what this is. And whenever we have a big blow off of one side of a channel, usually tends to find one on the opposite end. So although the sell side looks appealing, if you were only to look at this and ignore everything else, zooming out a little bit shows us that, well, we may be able to find some selling opportunities here, but I would really only be looking for those short-term sells to then look to buy it right back up again. So a little bit neutral. Both sides are totally fine in terms of trading, but again, the long side bias still holds true pretty well. On crude oil, a little bit of a breakdown here, right? The inventories came out as a huge surprise number. Nobody was expecting those. The API was forecasted at a negative. The inventories today was forecasted in the negative. Everything was looking for a bull pop. And shortly before the number came out, we saw a little bit of a dive lower, and sure enough, the news came out as a positive, and that forced all of the people who have been accumulating that morning move, assuming the news was going to be bullish, out of the market, and that caused the biggest news candle that we've had on crude oil over the past year and a half. So a big dive lower, and now we are forming a little bit of a spike down into a channel, right? Nice little spike and channel down, and we are looking for continuation. Now, one thing that we are looking for here, I would love to see the market pull back up towards the top of that channel starting point, 46.23, mainly because you also have that in combination with monthly resistance, and we still have downside objectives. There's a lot of stuff still saying that this could fall further, so I am looking for a selling opportunity. We are very low, and this was a very aggressive drive down. We may not even get a retrace that far. I would love to see 46.23 to sell it, but again, given the overall aggression to the downside, this may just continue into the overnight session and finish those objectives off. So we have open objectives to the downside at 45.48 down to 44.98, and those are the last stop for the sellers to drive down. Again, if we can get 46.23, I will be a happy camper, and that would be good enough for me. But 46.72, 46.96, and 32, 47.32 that is, would also be some very nice areas to potentially look for entries if the market pulls back even that far. So overall, still downside bias, obviously, given that big slam lower. Would love to find some selling pressure. Now, keep in mind, whenever you have a big move like that, or in general, whenever you have a big move on the market, it tends to be a little bit consolidated the next day. So, you know, play it a little bit safe tomorrow going in crude, but for the most part, still looking for selling. And then finally, the S&P 500, once again, another range-bound day. Not really a whole lot going on here. Range highs look best at 33.5. The lows, you could split them up in a couple different places, 28.5 or 29.5. Either way, they both fit pretty darn well. And then we have the major support level at 25.75. Overall, everything is range-bound. We're looking to buy low, sell high. If we zoom out and try to get an emphasis on what's going on, we can see the bigger picture. This dip lower appears to be nothing but a trap at the lows and an immediate rocket ship right back up. The final stop that the sellers are going to have in their favor, the buyers have to break through, is going to be that falling wedge resistance. Now, that's really it, right? Once that's out of the way, we could be gearing up to push back up to the 2400s, maybe even 2500s at the rate this is going. But for right now, we are very range-bound, looking to buy low, sell high, stay out of the middle as much as possible. So that's going to be the outlook that we are seeing for tomorrow's price action. Now, overall, tomorrow does have a decent amount of big news, but one notable thing, there's not really any big U.S. news. Out of the UK, tentatively throughout the day, we have the UK general elections. That is obviously a huge deal for any market based in the UK or any market that even has some correlation with the British pound. That's likely going to have an impact on pretty drastically. At 7:45 out of the Eurozone, we have the deposit facility rate forecasted at a negative 0.4%. That is also the same as the previous. And then also at 7:45, we have the ECB interest rate decision forecasted at 0, flat. And that is also the same as previous. At 8:30, we have ECB press conference coming out. So 8:30 is going to be a big announcement. Even though it is for the Euro side of things, it still is likely to have an impact on the US. So be very careful going into 8:30, especially 7:45 with all that stuff going on. And then at 11:15 out of Canada, we have the Bank of Canada Governor Pause speaks, and that will have a relatively large impact on markets like potentially even crude oil, given the amount of emphasis Canada has on that type of market, and of course anything related to the Canadian dollar. But you'll notice nothing out of the U.S., right? Or at least nothing big out of the U.S. So we got to play it a little bit cautious tomorrow. All the big news is coming in outside of the country, and well, even though they may still have an impact on things, there may not be a whole lot to keep this market moving tomorrow. So we got to play it safe. And like we always say, make the plan, trade the plan, follow the rules, and you'll be A-okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.